Hello, Bacho. Welcome to Aaj Ki Class. I am so incredibly excited to have you all here today. We're going to explore something that we completely take for granted in our daily lives, but it's a technology that literally revolutionized human history. I'm talking about books, newspapers, magazines, basically print. Aaj Ki's Explainer Mate, we're going to uncover exactly how ink on paper changed the entire world. तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं. Right, so take a look at this massive master blueprint we've got here. It looks a bit like a giant puzzle, doesn't it? But don't worry at all. We are going to decode this entire map together, step by step. This single visual captures the whole story, all the way from ancient China straight through to the Indian freedom struggle. Here is our syllabus for today. First, the global print revolution. Second, religion, dissent, and reading. Third, print arrives in India. Fourth, social reform and society. And finally, nationalism and colonial censorship. We're going on a fantastic journey from East Asia to Europe and then right back here to India. तैयार हैं आप सब? Let's go. Chapter 1. The Global Print Revolution. From woodblocks to presses. Okay, Bacho, I want all of you to just pause for a second. Imagine a world where every single book, every textbook you use for your exams, had to be carefully handwritten by someone. Think about how expensive, how rare, and how incredibly slow that would be. Well, that was reality before printing started. As early as AD 594, China was using woodblock printing. They would literally carve entire pages onto wooden blocks, ink them up, and press paper against them. Now, this was mainly for scholars and civil servants. But then, look at this massive jump in time and geography. Fast forward to the 1430s and 40s in Germany. Johannes Gutenberg took this basic concept and developed the mechanical printing press. And his famous first major printed book? The Bible. This was an absolute game changer for the speed of information. And this comparison right here perfectly shows the massive shift that followed. Before the print revolution, knowledge was basically locked away in a fortress. Books were these ultimate luxury items meant only for the absolute elite. But after the printing press, books became cheaper, they were produced faster, and they were so much easier to get your hands on. The biggest takeaway here is that knowledge suddenly reached a massive number of ordinary people. It completely democratized learning. Chapter 2. Religion, Dissent, and Reading. Ideas take flight. So, what actually happens when regular people start reading for themselves without relying on someone else to tell them what to think? Well, they start questioning things. A perfect historical example is Martin Luther. He heavily criticized the practices of the Catholic Church. Now, without print, his complaints might have just disappeared. But because of the printing press, his ideas were printed and they spread like wildfire. People read them, they debated them, and this directly sparked the Protestant Reformation. Printing wasn't just about reading stories anymore. It became a powerful tool to challenge authority. Which brings us to a very crucial word for today's session: dissent. Dissent simply means disagreement with authority. Because of print, ordinary people could suddenly question religious and political leaders on a huge scale. And as you can probably guess, governments and religious institutions got incredibly nervous. They realized they couldn't control the flow of information anymore, so they immediately started trying to enforce censorship. But listen, it wasn't all just serious debates and politics. Because books got so cheap, a completely new reading culture exploded. Publishers saw a massive market for everyday readers. So what did they print? Almanacs, ballads, folktales, newspapers, and journals. Reading literally went from being this heavy scholarly duty to a super popular leisure activity for the masses. But haik is satsa manoranjan bhi. People started reading just for the fun of it. Chapter 3. Print arrives in India. The Portuguese connection. Okay, so Europe was totally transformed, but let's bring the story home to India. Any guesses on how the printing press actually landed on our shores? Hint, it wasn't the British who brought it first. It happened in 3 distinct steps. Step 1, the printing press arrived in Goa in the mid-16th century with Portuguese missionaries. Step 2, Jesuit priests started printing books in various Indian languages to spread their religious message. So yes, it started with religion, but then it evolved. By step 3, in 1780, James Augustus Hickey started something truly historic. Now please pause and note this down, bachon, because it's a guaranteed exam question. James Augustus Hickey started the Bengal Gazette in 1780. This is widely regarded as the very first English newspaper in India. It was literally the seed for the massive Indian media landscape we see today. Chapter 4. Social Reform and Society. Empowering the Marginalized.
As print culture spread across India in the 19th century, it took on a very serious transformative role. It became a weapon to openly discuss deep-rooted societal issues, things like caste discrimination, widow remarriage, and massive social inequalities. And this directly empowered two major marginalized groups. For women, print helped them finally enter the world of reading and writing. As education spread, they began shaping their own narratives. And for the poor, publishers started creating super cheap books and pamphlets. Plus, public libraries started popping up, meaning even if you couldn't afford to buy a book, you could still read it. Knowledge was no longer just a luxury for rich men.
The historical sources give us some deeply powerful human stories here. Social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy used print extensively to fight against social evils, and then we have absolute trailblazers like Ras Sundari Devi. She literally learned to read in secret and then went on to write Amar Jeevan, which means my life. It remains one of the earliest full autobiographies ever written by an Indian woman. These are real, tangible milestones in our history, all made possible by ink and paper. Kitni badi baat hai, right? And finally, Chapter 5, Nationalism and Colonial Censorship, the final showdown. Moving into the late 19th century, the British colonial government realized they had a massive problem on their hands. Print had educated the masses, and during the national movement, it practically became a weapon. Just think about what these newspapers were spreading: nationalist ideas, open criticism of colonial rule, high-level political awareness. Bina akhbar ke azadi ki ladai kaise hoti? I mean, how could the freedom struggle have even functioned without the press? It created incredible unity and severely strengthened Indian nationalism against the British. The British authorities were absolutely terrified of this power. So what do? They tried to crush it. In 1878, they brought in the Vernacular Press Act. This was a completely draconian law designed specifically to control the Indian language press. They desperately wanted to silence vernacular newspapers because those were the exact papers reaching the common people and fueling the push for independence. And that leaves us with a very profound question to wrap up today's explainer. The British used the full force of the law to try and silence the Indian language press. They confiscated printing presses, they jailed editors. But I really want you to think about this. Can you ever truly censor an idea once it has been printed, read, and shared? History shows us the answer. Thank you so much for joining me for Aaj Ki class on the incredible power of print culture. Keep reading, keep questioning, and I'll see you all in the next session. Dhanyavad.